Two dirty painters to multiple seven-figure business owners. I'm Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
I'll be giving you guys the insider secrets to take your trades business to the next level.
From crazy stories to proven strategies, get ready to supercharge your business with us.
Welcome to the Dirty Painters Podcast.
In today's episode, we'll be explaining the 10 reasons why you suck at pricing jobs. Let's get right into it.
All right.
Pricing mistakes.
I like this 10 reasons series.
Yeah, I think we'll just keep going at it. The top 10 thing, it's an easier thing to listen to as well. So, pricing mistakes. Is this a list you compiled yourself that you look into it and
so
you saw the
I'll give you some context. This is a list that I compiled based on why I sucked when I was starting out. And then also what really triggered it, like we mentioned in the previous episode, it's when we got the Cloudbooks headquarters in Michigan painted, and I got all this different prices from a bunch of different contractors. I was like, damn, these guys, some of them were good, but most of them were like shooting from the hip. They were not accounting for a lot of things. Their prices were either too low or extremely high. So I'm like, I'm 100% not the only one that struggled with this. There's majority of painters out there that they're struggling with them. So I'm like, I think this will be a good episode to make our audience aware that they're selling paint jobs and then why they suck. What are the main reasons that they suck at pricing out jobs, selling, or whatever.
All right, so let's kick it off with number one. Lack of experience. Inexperienced painters may not fully understand the costs involved, leading to underpricing or overpricing.
All right, we'll use ourselves as a prime example, and then we'll just stick with what we did wrong. So you can start first.
My main issue when pricing out projects and when I wasn't pricing them out correctly is not taking into account, like I said, the overhead. And then the next thing after that will be the labor. I didn't really put into perspective like, hey, this is actually a 4-day project instead of the 3-day project. And I started implementing into my calculations, okay, it's a 4-day project, but let's just put it at 5 days just in case. You never know. Shit happens. Maybe performance on day 3 might not be as good because it's a little bit more detailed. So that, as the more experience I got, the more I started implementing these, how do you call them, like plan B, plan C into the pricing.
Like your backup plans.
Yeah,
like your safety
plan.
net.
Yeah,
I think
that would be the best way to
safety
explain
net
it.
is a good way to put it out, like to put a good terminology on it. Mine personal perspective on this, especially when we first started out, because mind you, again, I never worked for another company as an estimator. I never worked for another company as a project manager. I always worked for other companies as a painter or a crew leader. So I never really had to price out jobs. I never really learned how they did it. None of that. So starting out the business, Karmelo was pretty young. I was young too myself. I was like, 21 years old. So my main responsibility was to find the jobs, sell the jobs, and then go paint. So a lot of unknown territory, a lot of things that we never had to deal with before. I never had to deal with before. I just didn't know how to price them out pretty much. I didn't know how long they took. I didn't know how long, what it would take to produce the job. So that lack of experience, it's impossible to avoid it in the beginning. And we noticed when we train people that they never had actual estimating experience, no matter how much we train them, no matter how much we try to put that safety net for them, they need to have the experience. The best way to learn how to estimate those jobs is to go out there and estimate. No matter how many courses you take, no matter how many of these videos you watch, no matter how much I train you or any experienced person trains you, the best way to learn and gain that experience is going out there and estimating jobs. And how do you learn? By fucking up, losing money, messing estimates up, underbidding. That's what helped me to become a proficient estimator right now. And then now I can walk into any place. It doesn't take me long to understand how much the job costs. And then the only way to gain that experience is by repetition. You have to put the reps in.
Number 2, poor market research. Failing to analyze competitor pricing and market rates can result in prices that are either too high or too low. I want you. So when we first started our transition down to Florida, how did you do your market research on your
Oh yeah.
competitors' pricing?
So like I said on my story yesterday, I'm gonna give you guys a cheat code on how I did that. It's a great way to do it because for context, when in Michigan prices are way higher than they are down here. That's a fact. Up north, where we were in Michigan, we were charging way higher because of the complexity of the jobs, bigger houses. It was just different. So me coming down to Florida, which the competition is more aggressive, there's more painters, work year round. The prices were very, very different. So I came down here, and my first, I would say, 50 to 100 estimates, I was shooting Michigan prices. And then I didn't land shit because there was no branding recognition, brand new in the market. So I was like, okay, I lost my edge. I came from Michigan. The business in Michigan was because Carmelo didn't move with me. I moved down here first by myself. So I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Do I just suck, or did I just get lucky in Michigan? Or what is happening? I remember I was talking to Mitchell, one of our reps. I was like, Mitchell, what the fuck are we doing wrong? We're not landing a single job. And then I learned the hard way after I burned through almost 100 leads that my pricing, I was still using my Michigan formulas, my Michigan margins, and my Michigan market prices to estimate jobs down here. And I completely flopped. I didn't sell at all. So what I did, the cheat code I did, and you guys can use it for yourself as well to do market research. I have just bought my house down here, and again, nobody knew that we existed. Nobody knew that Redion owns Olympian Painting. Now I cannot do it anymore because now everybody knows I own Olympian. I didn't have a branded car, nothing. So what I did is I went on Google. I called up 20 painters to come give me cabinet estimate, interior painting, and exterior painting. And then I was like, okay, I just bought this place. I'm moving from up north. I want to change the colors. I want to do this. I want to do that. I got a bunch of estimates. I looked at all the prices. Also, I looked at their sales process, what they were presenting to me. And then after I got all that information, I was like, okay, dude, I'm literally 3 times, 4 times the price of these guys. No wonder I'm not closing shit. So I got all that information. I adjusted my numbers, and I made my estimates way more competitive. And that's pretty much the cheat code. If you're starting in a new market that nobody knows you, if you're starting a new business that it's not out there yet, that you own the business, this is a great cheat code, a great way to, even if you don't own a house, if you're renting a house, or if you're living in an apartment, just rent an Airbnb for a day or something, and then have a bunch of painters from your market come out, give you estimates, look at the proposals, look at the prices, and you need at least 10 to have a good sample to pull data from. So it's a great way to understand where your competitors are, because you still need to be aware of where your market is, because every market is different. And that's how I realized that Michigan market and Florida market were completely different. And we do that for when we start other locations, and when we partner up with painters in different markets. We're like, hey, do that. Bring some painters, get some estimates so we can understand where the pricing is, because we have to go with the market. So there's your cheat code. Use it. It doesn't work after a year or two though, because if like we said, right now I cannot do it anymore because painters, after 2 years, 3 years of me marketing, they know I own Olympian. It's impossible to do it now. But in the beginning, it's a great cheat code to understand where your pricing needs to be so you can be competitive.
Number 3, inconsistent pricing models. Not having a consistent pricing strategy per square foot, hourly rate, etc., can confuse both the painter and the customer.
Yes, we see that a lot, and we used to do that a lot. So we would have, sometimes we would price out per square foot, sometimes we would price out man hours, sometimes we would price out per job, sometimes we would price out per cabinet door, sometimes we would price out per linear foot of cabinet. So we were very all over the place. I remember one time, the most inefficient way, I would measure every single wall, and then I'll come up with the price for that. And there's painting companies that do that, but that was very inefficient. It took so much time. So you have to figure out one way to price out jobs. If you're selling cabinets, either do per door, per item, or either do per linear foot or per size of kitchen. You can't just bouncing around because then you confuse yourself and then you're very inconsistent. And then let's say you don't have a consistent formula. Let's say me and Carmelo are getting estimates from an Olympian rep. And then it's a similar kitchen. If this formula is not consistent, and then that rep, let's say he tells Carmelo $6,000 for his kitchen, and then he tells me $5,200. Me and Carmelo are friends. I'm like, dude, we got the same price from the same dudes. Why is yours cheaper, $800? And we've come across that. They'll be like, oh, but you did the cabinets of my friend for X amount. How come mine are so much more expensive? And I'll be like, oh, shit. Yeah, I'm like, I didn't have an answer. I'm like, oh, I'll match it, whatever, since it's a referral. But it's a bad look. Whatever your pricing formula is, it has to be the same for every customer because you're going to run into that if you're shooting prices from the hip. And I did that a lot. And then the more people get to know you, the more they refer you, your prices need to be consistent because if they're not, just because of your lack of consistency on your pricing, you're going to seem as you're trying to like scheme them for more money, which that's how I would take it as a consumer. Very important. And I've had a few instances of that up in Michigan because our pricing was not consistent. Sometimes it'll be square foot, sometimes it'll be per door, sometimes it'll be per job. And then people are like, dude, how come my friend was X amount? And so yeah, make sure you have a formula that works best for you and then stick with that formula and make it better, make it more efficient, make it faster so you can turn around estimates way faster because like we said, speed kills.
Number 4, overlooking hidden costs. Ignoring expenses like materials, labor, overhead, transportation can lead to significant losses.
What's the number one hidden cost, you think?
Number one hidden cost? I would say people don't factor in the marketing that it took to land the job. B, the transportation of you going to the appointment, booking the job, and then going back every so often checking up on it. C, operational expenses, meaning the insurance, the general liability insurance, the auto insurance. If you have workman's comp, that goes into it. So this project has to pay for it because it's split out in every book project that you have. Just split the payment into all of them so you can get the amount of money that has to go into that, which is usually 10%,
10 to
15%. I would
15%.
say. So I would say that's probably one of the main ones.
I like the to land the job, the customer acquisition cost. That's a lot of things that we overlook. That's a metric that you need to track. It's very important to track that metric, customer acquisition cost, which a lot of painting companies out there, they don't factor in because you're not looking at the cost per lead, you're looking at the cost per acquisition. So how much do I need to actually spend to land a job? Because let's say your cost per lead is $20 and then your booked appointment cost is $100, your customer acquisition cost might be $1,000, which can be very high if you're just doing a cabinet job. So that's a hidden cost that a lot of people overlook. How much does it actually cost you to land that job? I like that one. My number one thing would be material waste. I'm very, very OCD about material waste because people, there's this saying that it's in every painting market I've been at. Oh, the job just pays for itself for materials. Yeah, it pays for itself for materials, but why waste it? Why waste rolls of tape? Why waste gallons of paint? Why use blown out tips? Why not use efficient pumps? A very recent example, not even a week ago, like a few days ago. Carmelo is like, this guy, he needs another gallon of paint. I'm like, wow. He literally used a gallon of primer to prime the kitchen. How come he needs 2.5 gallons to do the 2 coats that he has to do of top coat? And I'm like, what kind of machine is he using? And then what was he using?
A 490 XT, the exterior pump.
Yeah. I'm like, dude. I'm like, and then 2K poly is like $120 a gallon plus a hardener. So I'm like, no, this won't fly. You cannot be spraying cabinets with a 490 XT, which is a heavy duty workhorse, to spray cabinets. You have to bleed your line, 50-foot line, to get a gallon in just so you can spray. No, it doesn't work like that. I was like, either get a better pump or get a GX19 or borrow one of ours. Otherwise, I can't be every job that you do for me spending pretty much what? Double material almost?
An extra 150, 200.
Yeah, an extra $150, $200 per job. If he does, let's say, 50 cabinet jobs for us a year, that's big money. So that's, I think, what the biggest waste is. Business owners are not very aware on the equipment, the right equipment that they need to use, and they're not keeping track of, like us, we were able to identify that because it was a red flag as soon as we saw the extra gallon. Because we do thousands of those kitchens. We know how much it takes to complete the job. So that was a big red flag that was immediately caught as soon as they bought that extra gallon. And then now, instead of letting it run 10, 15 jobs of the painter using the wrong pump, now we're like, hey, this is how we fix this. We either buy a better pump or use one of ours or whatever it might be, because we cannot be wasting material. Prime example of happening a few days ago.
Number 5, emotional pricing. Allowing emotions to dictate pricing decisions can lead to undervaluation of their own work. I was guilty of this in the very beginning, especially when some clients would be like nice. They would offer you drinks or maybe a little snack. And
The
then
cookie secret.
And then I'll be like, okay, I'll cut them a little deal. I'll help them out. They're nice people or whatever. But then it hurts you on your bottom line. And you're like, oh, shit, those cookies were not worth it.
So my prime example, which I'm very guilty of doing, especially in the beginning where we're not as busy, we're not as business savvy, we're young, naive, we just wanted to make money, get ourselves up and running. So customers are very smart. And a lot of them, they would see that I was young, I was starting out, so they would be like, yeah, Redion. They would be nice, like Karmelo said, they would like treat me nice. And again, they could tell that I had experience and all that. I knew what I was talking about. So they would identify that I was not a big company. I was trying to, stay busy. So what they would do is like they would come like with all the nice things, the cookies, the coffee, and all that, being friends. And they would be like, oh yeah, take care of me on this one, and I'm gonna bring 5 more customers for you. And me, I'll get so excited, like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'll take care of them, and they're gonna refer me to their cousins, their friends, their cat, their dog. I'm gonna paint for all of them. Next thing you know, I'll finish the job, probably break even on a lot of them. I can think of like, they just running in front of my eyes right now, a lot of the jobs. They never got me a referral. I never painted their cat's house. I never did anything extra besides that. And then they were the hardest customer to deal with, super picky. They tried to take advantage of everything. And I did that a bunch of times, actually. I was like, holy shit, it took me a while to realize that all these people that they tell me they're going to bring me all this work to get a better deal, they never brought me work. So it took me a little bit to realize that. And then I was like, hey, that's when we came up with that referral fees. I'm like, I'm going to charge you what it cost me to get this job done the right way. And if you bring me customers, we have referral fees, we have gift cards, we have friends and family discounts, all these things. So I have to charge you what it costs me to get the job done properly, because you want a good job or not? You want me to cut corners? You want me to use cheap materials? So it's up to you. That's when I start transitioning. Like, okay, these guys, they try to take advantage of the situation. They just will never bring you that work. I promise you. And I know a lot of you out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, take care of me on this one. And I promise you, man, I'm going to bring you so much work, you'll be busy for life. So that was emotional selling at the time. Or another thing is I would get very excited about landing a certain type of project, because I'm like, okay, this is going to be so good to add in our portfolio, to say that we did this. So I would underbid those projects heavily. Prime example, the first time we did high gloss, I underbid the shit out of that job. I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna look good on Instagram and all that. On that job, the first time we did high gloss, we ended up losing a lot of money, a lot of freaking money in materials. It was not factored in. and we still had to deliver a good quality job. That was the prime example I can think of. I got too excited of landing a certain type of project, and then I got burned. Or the first time we did our first mansion, I remember it was in West Bloomfield. It was how much? It was like 7,000 square feet. That we had all our first crew that we started, and I was like, "Oh, Carmelo, our first big project. We're gonna 7,000 square feet house. I charged $19,000 for full interior. If you understand painting numbers, that's not even $3 a square foot. So we painted everything: walls, ceilings, trim, closets. It had orange walls, high ceilings, like 20 something foot ceilings. We had to roll everything from the ground. It was a nightmare. Not a nightmare. The project came out good, but after we paid all our guys, all the materials, there was not much money left. There was literally not much money left. It was, but that was an example of me being way too emotional because I got way too excited to land that big ticket project, which turned out not being a big ticket at all. I underbid the shit out of the project, but we still did a good job. We got it done, and then I took that loss and I turned it into a lesson for the next big project. And now you see we do like all these big mansions all the time on our stories, and they're priced out good. But me not fucking up that first one would have not gotten me to this point right now where I'm in control of my emotions. I know what it takes to get the job done, and then I know what it takes to get the job done properly and how much it's gonna cost to get the job done properly without cutting any corners. It's either take it or leave it now. You want a good job the right way, this is how much it costs. Because I know how much it costs. Because I've done so many of them that this is what it costs.
The prime example for me would be that one exterior we did in Bloomfield Hills, which is like 5 years ago, where the guy, I don't know if he owned like the military recruitment centers or if he was like a property manager. He was in
Shelby Township.
Oh, Shelby Township,
Yeah.
So long ago, I don't even remember. But it was priced out so
that
well
guy was
for
Bud
him.
Black. I don't want to be talking about him every time. Oh my God.
And the reason I say that is because didn't he just reach out to you just recently?
Yeah. So literally every time I would go quote that guy, it's like he hypnotized me. We used to call him the hypnotizer.
The hypnotist.
I don't know like what he would do to me. Like he would promise me these military base things and like these warehouses. So I was like, wow, man, I'm like,
super busy.
Yeah, super busy. I'm like, I'm gonna retire from just these guys' jobs. Every time I would go to his house, he would get me. I don't know how. He was a very, very smooth talker, very business savvy, very good at negotiating, very good at presenting a picture that was probably didn't even exist. Big ass exterior. I probably still have the picture. So what I had to do, the house was so high that I had to put the 40-foot ladder. I think I still have the picture. The 40-foot ladder on like blocks because I could not reach. And I was on top of the ladder to try and get the peak. Remember? And it was you and then one of our guys holding me. I was like 45 feet up high in the air trying to get this job done. And then we painted the exterior, did carpentry. Then he added the windows that they were not even supposed to be in the initial scope of work. He's like, no, Redion, you told me you're going to paint the windows, man. Come on, everything is looking brand new. How you not going to paint the windows? I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, man, whatever. Going back to not having a detailed scope of work. So I'm like, okay, whatever. We're going to paint the windows. So we paint the windows. He's like, guess what, man? I'm going to open all the windows and you have to paint the little edge too. I'm like, what? So he got me again. He hypnotized me. So we're painting the little edge and like with artist brushes. And it was a big house. Like what, 30 windows? More,
way more.
I can't remember. I think I charged him like $8,000 for that project. And when we did the numbers, we lost money. Big time. And it was such a pain in the ass project. And then he callbacks. Like, oh yeah, this window, you have a little touch up. So that was... another prime example of emotional selling. They painted such a nice picture. They promised me the world. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I never got a return on investment on that job. And then, yeah, he called me, not recently, like a year ago, I think.
Oh, a year ago?
Yeah. He's like, hey, man, how's it going? I'm like, dude, I'm not even in Michigan anymore. He's like, do you have a recommendation? I'm like, no, I don't. Yeah, that's that was that story.
Moving on to the next one. Underestimating labor time. Misjudging how long a job will take can result in inadequate pricing, especially for labor intensive projects like high gloss. The high gloss example you just listed is
Yeah.
very labor intensive. It's not as much material, there's not that much expenses in materials as
It's a
usual
preparation.
projects, but the labor that goes into it, it is immense.
Also, my best example is the grain filling with oak doors. That's very labor intensive. A lot of people miscalculate how much it takes to do a full grain fill on a oak cabinet.
That's you need to really communicate the level of expectation with the client, especially for some people that work in markets that it's drywall, it's not stucco or the textured walls, and then some people expect like flush walls or and you don't really say that. You're just like, yeah, standard prep. It's don't expect to have like a
And
piano
that's your
black wall,
fault.
smooth.
That's your fault because you didn't
Yeah.
communicate it. And it was my fault when I was building those oak cabinets because I was not asking the customers if you want a full grain fill. They don't know. So it was my mistake for not explaining what a full grain fill entails and how it's going to look if you don't do a full grain fill because they never got them paid. So they don't know. So now after I burned so many jobs and I had to pay out of our pocket to make those jobs right, to the customer's expectations, what we did is we took an oak door and we did grain fill, no grain fill. Do you like how it looks with a full grain fill? Sure. It's gonna cost X amount. Do you like how it looks with without the grain fill? Sure. This is what you're gonna get. This is how the finished product is gonna look. It took a few jobs for me to understand and make that sample so I can set proper expectations for the customer and understand like, hey, this is how long it actually takes to do this. Another example I can think is like darker colors, especially once we really became the glass masters and people are asking us to do like high finishes, black. We sprayed a lot of black. Tricone black was our most popular color for a year straight. We're doing trim, we're doing doors, cabinets, understanding that it requires more coat and more preparation to get because black shows a lot of imperfections and it requires more expensive materials. So those are like some costs that start like without having the experience, we didn't know to expect. And again, that comes with getting burned. You gain that experience by doing more reps and then getting burned and losing money.
Number 7, failure to account for complexity. Not recognizing the complexity of a job. For example, multiple colors, intricate designs. It can lead to insufficient pricing. Multiple colors. If you guys listen to our previous episode, we talked about one of our projects that they had 13 colors that we didn't list in our scope of work. But another example that comes to mind is, do you remember that garage that we did with the line design on around for that Ford Fanatic?
Oh my God.
That's
I sold my Celine to that guy too. I regret it. But no, good guy. Again, it was my fault. I didn't set the expectations. So this guy, he was a Ford collector and great guy. We're still friends to this day. But he wanted a design on his garage. And then that garage was bid just as a standard repaint, just whatever. So he wanted a stripe running on the walls. He wanted a second stripe. He wanted the wainscoting a different color. Then he wanted the ceilings a different, darker color. Then he wanted another racing stripe running on the top, which I think I'm sure I have videos of that on our business Instagram of how we lasered it. And we had, one of our guys had this like tile machine that shot lasers all over so we could tape the lines. And then we had to redo the lines to make them square. Then we had to paint the wainscoting. And then he wanted the ceilings iron ore, which they were white. So to have full coverage, you need to do at least 3 coats. And then the racing stripe on top, extra work. I mean, it came out sweet. But the labor that it took and the amount of effort and the attention to detail that the project required, it was not compensated. Because, number one, I did a mistake of not asking or trying to identify his wants better on the estimating process. To me, it was like, oh yeah, we'll just paint the garage, just standard repaint. And then number two, again, I mean, the number two goes with him. It's pretty much I didn't identify his needs and wants. And it was my mistake. And I didn't put it properly on the scope of work. And then when the time came to paint the garage, he's like, hey, man, that's what I want. I didn't explain to him in the beginning of the process that requires more work. So it would probably be double the price of what I originally quoted from the garage. I took a hit on that one, but I also took a lesson. When we do lines, when we do those designs, when we have to use a laser to tape all the lines, do darker colors, 4 different colors, it's going to be more money. Good example. I completely forgotten about that one.
Number 8, lack of business acumen. Without basic knowledge of business principles, a painter may struggle to set prices that reflect their skills and expertise.
Goes back to knowing your finances, doing your bookkeeping, knowing your operating costs, knowing your expenses, knowing your overheads. A lot of these kind of, not hidden costs because they get deducted from your bank account every month, but goes back to not having basic financial knowledge of what it takes to run your business. I think that's what it comes down to. And a lot of people, they don't factor those in when they're estimating jobs, that overhead or the cost, the operating cost of the business. In the beginning, you don't have a big operating cost, especially if you're like a solo painter or like you and another guy. But once you start having crews, once you start having a shop, work vehicles, expensive insurance and all that, those costs add up big time. And you always need to keep them in the back of your head on your estimating formulas, because if you're just not bidding the jobs properly, best case you break even, worst case you lose money. So it's very important to have that business sense and financial sense from very early stages, from day one pretty much, not very early stage. From day one, you need to have that financial structure and organization in your business.
Number 9, inconsistent quality of work. If a painter's portfolio is inconsistent, they may find it difficult to justify higher prices. A lot of inconsistencies in the pricing and the quality of work. You really just need to stay on one path and not veer too far from it. And an example from the quality of work is I see some people, they have the perfect cabinet sample. And then when the time comes and they land a project, it's not really up to par with the sample. So if you're
Little cheat code, do not make your cabinet sample perfect. Have it a little bit beat up, have a few scratches, have a few anything. Because if you make it perfect, or for example, like our cabinet samples, we have like a nicks or like chips on purpose because we want to explain to the customer, hey, it's a durable coating, but we don't warranty, what is it called? Wear and tear, or like man-made wear and tear. For example, we use the automotive paint, which automotive paint, it's the most durable coating out there, pretty much. So we use that as an example. If your car gets a rock chip and then it nicks the paint, you can't just go back to the dealership and be like, hey, can you warranty my paint? No, they won't warranty the rock chip that you got from the road. Or if you run a cone, I actually did that the other day, accidentally, I ran a cone, and let's say it scuffed up my bumper or anything, it's not, I can't go back to the dealership like, hey, can you warranty my front bumper that I scuffed it up? No, it doesn't work like that. It's the same with the cabinets. That's why I say don't make your cabinets perfect. Have those little chips. That way you can use them in your sales process to explain to the customer, like, hey, this is why we warranty, but this is also not what we don't warranty. Prime example, we used to have this rep. So we have gold, silver, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum package. So that rep created his own package, the diamond package. So I'm like, first of all, dude, what the fuck is the diamond package? Or it doesn't even exist on our sales process. And then he sold this lady this diamond package that was like, yeah, everything's gonna be perfect. Every line is gonna be caulked. We don't ever caulk lines. Little side note. Everything is gonna be like filled in. You're not gonna see anything. It was just crazy. And I remember vividly, some of her doors had that water damage from like water because they were MDF doors. And you're like, yeah, it's gonna be perfect. It's gonna be a brand new door. If you're a cabinet finisher, you know you can never make MDF perfect unless you buy a new door. So he sold that lady the diamond package. He sold her the dream, and she was gonna get a brand new kitchen for $5,000. So whatever, we didn't know what he was selling because at the time we're not really keeping track of those estimators. And then we show up, we do the job finishes, we install the door, and that's when the nightmare begins. The lady goes in with like a freaking military grade flashlight and starts calling out. I remember first thing that she called out was those MDF doors with water damage. She's like, oh, you guys told me the diamond package to make these doors brand new. And I was there. And I'm like, the what package? She's like, yeah, your rep told me he was going to have the diamond package. He goes, I'm like, whoa. I'm like, we don't even have anything like the diamond package, first of all. And second, that these doors are beyond salvaging. They're like, they're water damage. They're puffed up. No matter how much Bondo I put on them, they're not going to be perfect. They can be good enough, but they cannot be perfect unless you get a new door. It was a lot of back and forth. Then I realized that it was not the homeowner's fault. And that's when I pulled back. I'm like, you know what? We'll do our best to do all this. And I remember I picked up all the doors. We recocked all the lines, tried to do our best with these puffed up under the sink doors. It was our fault. It was my fault because I let my reps loose, create their own packages, sell customers the dream because they wanted to get the sale, and then the production suffered from it. And also, we always have to do right by the customer, and the customer was not very happy with us because we sold her the diamond package that never existed, and we did not deliver and met the expectations of that diamond package.
That didn't exist.
Yeah. No, our rep literally created his own package, diamond package. That's a true story. Yeah, don't make your cabinet samples perfect. That way customer can understand, because we're not building new cabinets. We're refinishing cabinets. A lot of them have a lot of damages. So sometimes they cannot be consistent. A lot of cabinets are in better shape than the other ones. So they're going to obviously come out better than the others. If they want a perfect job, like, hey, just reface the kitchen, get brand new doors, or just buy new cabinets. Spend 100 G's.
Number 10, not considering client expectations. Failure to understand what clients value can lead to pricing that doesn't align with perceived quality or service. These factors can combine to create challenges in establishing fair and profitable pricing for painting jobs. Setting client expectations. We talked about this a little bit, but yeah.
Don't overpromise and underdeliver. That's the most important thing I can tell you guys on this episode. Never overpromise, never sell people the dream and then underdeliver, because it's gonna come back and bite you in the ass all the time. I've seen it happen. We've done it. Like with the previous example I just gave with the diamond package, he came back and created a big clusterfuck pretty much, because we overpromised the customer something that we could not deliver on, and they expected that because they trusted us that we would deliver that result, and then we didn't, and it was a nightmare.
My biggest example for that was when I sold an interior project up in Michigan, Birmingham. It was so like standard repaint, whatever. I was like, yeah, we're gonna fix all the imperfections on the wall. Is what I usually say, but it's like, it's not gonna be like perfectly smooth. But that's what the client expected.
Very vague.
So final walkthrough comes, and then boom, this big flashlight comes right on the wall, going like this, like, oh yeah, a little bump here, a little bump here. There was wainscoting, flashlight goes at an angle. Oh yeah, a little bump here, like a little nick that if you use a little bit more filling. And there was like blue tape all over for stuff that you can't really see.
She started calling old drywall repairs. Like, the house was like old too. It was like,
yeah, it was a historic home around 1890. It was built. But and that was my fault for not telling her, like, yeah, it's not going to be a level 5 finish. Sorry, lady, but...
You didn't pay for a level 5 finish, but it was your fault because you didn't set the expectations.
And we compromised. We did the majority of the patches, but not to the extent of, like, okay, this bump on the wall, just don't expect me to, like, fully float the whole wall. Or
I remember we sent one of our guys to a plane next there for 3 days. He was floating ceilings. He was floating repairs. My God, she was a nightmare. And again, it was not her fault.
It was
our
mine.
fault because we didn't set the right expectations. Or we didn't spend time on the estimate process to understand her wants and needs. We didn't spend time to understand what she expected from those walls. And if she expected that from those walls, we had to make sure to educate her to what it takes to make those walls perfect. Like me, when I would go to these houses that were beat up, they had decades of repairs on them. I'm like, you know what? For me to level 5 this, it's probably better to just go over it with new drywall. Like it will be more cost efficient. And then I'm like, do you want to spend X amount? And that's when price conditioning comes in place. And then making them realize what it's really going to cost and then what that cost entails. You have to educate them. And then based on how much money they want to spend, be like, hey, I can give you bronze package or I can give you platinum package, but there's no diamond package. If you want diamond package, build it again new from the beginning. That was a good example. And I can think of another one that Birmingham house, millions of dollars house, the lady was her own GC on the project. First red flag. I go do the estimate. She kicked out like 3 painters before. And if I went now to that estimate, I'd be like, oh, okay, why those painters left the job? Why 3 painting companies left? That would be my first question I would ask now. But back then, I was excited to get the big project. I didn't even care. I was like, okay, it's going to be this much. We'll do it. We started the project, trim work, panel walls, wainscoting everywhere. So that lady wanted us to, and again, those were her expectations. It's my fault that I didn't understand her expectations. So she wanted us to double fill the nail holes on the trim work, on the panels, panel walls, whatever. She wanted us to bundle them twice to be completely and perfectly smooth, like so you don't see a little indent, you don't see it and all that. Not just the standard putty and caulk, prime paint. Not just that. She wanted everything to be flawless, seamless. She wanted everything to be like a fridge pretty much. And then she would go around after we would finish work, another flashlight lady. She would go around and she would blue tape every single nail hole. She'd be like, okay, this is not perfectly flush. This is not perfectly smooth. And we're doing cabinets for her. She's like, oh, the cabinets, I need all the butt joints perfectly blended. She wanted all the butt joints on the trim perfectly blended. She wanted crazy amount of work, which we could have done, but for the price I gave her, it was impossible to do that. I'm like, listen, to do all this, just in prep, you're looking at 3 weeks. I'm like, it's impossible to do with the current budget. And then she understood, and honestly, to this day, we're still friends with her. She's great. But I was like, you know what? You're a good lady. I'm like, it's better if you just find somebody else. And she ended up just, at the end, nobody could deliver to her expectations. And she just ended up just hiring a normal, average company. And I remember when we went back to paint her garage, because, again, we created a relationship. She was chill. She was a good lady. And then we went back to paint her garage. I'm like, oh, let me see the inside finished. And then I went inside. I'm like, oh, how about this? How about this? It's like, you know what? I gave up. I'm like, there's no way I could ever meet my level of expectations because a paint job can never be perfect. I'm like, it's not a car that you can make it perfect. And then, yeah, she compromised eventually. She understood that her level of expectation was impossible by anybody to attain. And then that was a story that it was a good lesson for me to take to other high-end places and be like, hey, no matter how much prep we do, like those nail holes, everything, it's never going to be 100% perfect. It's never going to be 100% smooth. It's never going to be 100% flush. Is it something that you can live with? If they say no, then I'm not the painter for you. And that's when having samples of like trim, panels, cabinets, whatever it might be, level 5 walls, it's good to like have those visuals to explain to the customer, like, hey, this is what I can do. If it's good for you, then fine. If it's not good for you, then we're not a good fit for each other. Very important. So having the samples, I think, helps you set the level of expectation with any project that you're selling.
Those were the top 10 reasons.
Yeah, top 10 reasons why you suck at estimating jobs. Anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think that pretty much covered everything.
Awesome. So this will wrap up this episode of the Dirty Painters podcast.
Be sure to follow our business on Instagram at Olympian Painting and also our personal brands over at Olympian_Redion and also Olympian_Karmelo for more content. And keep up with our episodes on the Dirty Painters podcast.
If you like this episode, be sure to share with a fellow painter or trader. Until next time, this is Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
Signing out from the Dirty Painters podcast. Thank you,
Take care.
guys.